When my husband served me divorce papers at our gender reveal party in front of 70 people, I smiled and opened the pink envelope because I already knew he'd lose everything he thought he owned. If you've ever felt invisible in your own marriage, stay with me. This gets better. I was holding that pink envelope when Tyler leaned close and whispered the words that would destroy him. The garden at my parents' house was decorated with white balloons and gold streamers. 70 people. Our families, friends, co-workers, all holding their phones up, ready to capture our joy. My mother stood 3 meters away, beaming. My father adjusted his camera. Tyler's sister Vanessa watched from near the dessert table with an expression I'd learned to recognize. Not surprise, but knowledge. "I want a divorce," Tyler whispered, his breath hot against my ear. "I don't want this baby." Never did. My hand froze on the envelope. I was 6 months pregnant, sick every morning, working double shifts as a pediatric nurse while Tyler explored opportunities after losing his job. 6 months carrying our daughter alone while he spent afternoons at the gym, evenings with friends, weekends visiting his sister. The envelope felt heavy in my trembling hands. Around us, people were chanting, "Open it! Open it!" My best friend Sarah had her camera ready. Tyler's mother was crying happy tears, and my husband, the man whose child I was carrying, was telling me he wanted out. "You're joking," my voice came, out strangled. "Dead serious, Claire. Open the envelope and pretend you're happy. We'll talk after." I should have screamed. Should have thrown the envelope in his face and told everyone what kind of man he really was. But I was raised to be polite, to not make scenes, to handle things privately. So I did what years of conditioning had taught me. I smiled. I tore open the envelope with shaking hands. Pink confetti exploded into the summer air. "It's a girl," I announced, my voice somehow steady. Even as my world collapsed, everyone applauded. Tyler didn't even look at me. He just waved at the crowd, that forced smile on his face, like an actor going through motions in a script he'd memorized but never believed in. I watched him accept congratulations for the next 3 hours, watched him laugh at jokes about teaching her to ride a bike, about scaring away future boyfriends, about being wrapped around her tiny finger. Each word was a lie. Each smile was a performance. And I stood there, with my hand on my swollen belly, feeling my daughter kick, wondering how I'd ever thought I knew this man. When everyone finally left, when my parents had finished cleaning up and my mother had hugged me one last time with tears in her eyes about becoming a grandmother, Tyler put divorce papers on our kitchen table. "Vanessa helped me with these. She knows a lawyer." Of course she did. Vanessa had treated our marriage like a temporary inconvenience from the start. At family gatherings, she mentioned Tyler's ex-girlfriends with calculated nostalgia. Last Christmas, she gave me a book about recognizing when relationships have run their course. On my birthday, she sent a card addressed only to Tyler, as if I didn't exist. I'd told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining the coldness in her eyes, that I was too sensitive like Tyler always said. "I'm not paying child support," Tyler continued, flipping through documents like he was reviewing a grocery list. "Vanessa explained I can claim temporary unemployment. You make good money. You can handle the kid yourself." The room spun. My hands gripped the edge of the table. "You planned this. Both of you planned this. Don't be dramatic. I'm just being realistic. I don't want to be a father. Never promised that, except he had promised." The night we found out I was pregnant, he cried with joy. He bought the first pair of tiny shoes. He chose names. Or had he been pretending even then, while Vanessa designed his exit strategy? "I need you to sign today," he said, sliding a pen toward me. "Vanessa scheduled a hearing for next week. The faster we handle this, the better for everyone." I picked up the papers and read, "Petition for dissolution of marriage, waiver of parental rights, division of assets," in which Tyler would keep the car I'd paid for, half of my savings, and zero responsibility for the child he'd helped create. "You're not going to give me anything? Not help with any of her expenses? Claire, be reasonable. I'm unemployed. You have a stable career. It makes sense." What didn't make sense was that I'd spent 2 years supporting a man who was now claiming poverty to abandon his daughter. But I didn't say any of that. I just closed the documents and set them on the counter. "I'll think about it," Tyler exploded. "There's nothing to think about. Vanessa said if you make this difficult, I can sue for emotional distress." That's when I understood. This wasn't just divorce. This was calculated destruction, orchestrated by a sister-in-law who'd never accepted me and a husband too weak to have his own opinions. They'd chosen the gender reveal party specifically. Maximum humiliation, maximum pressure, maximum witnesses to my shame. I touched my belly and felt Sophie kick. She didn't know her father was trying to erase her before she was even born. She trusted me completely, the way babies do, believing I'd protect her from everything. She was right to trust me. I would protect her. I just needed to figure out how. Monday morning, I arrived at the hospital early. My body ached, not just from pregnancy, but from spending the entire night staring at those divorce papers, reading each line until the words blurred together. Tyler had slept peacefully in the guest room, like a man with nothing on his conscience. I heard him snoring through the wall at 2 a.m. while I sat in our daughter's half-finished nursery, surrounded by boxes of clothes I'd bought alone, furniture I'd assembled alone, dreams I'd apparently been dreaming alone. My supervisor, Rachel, was in the nurse's station reviewing schedules when I walked in. She looked up and her face changed immediately. "Claire, you look exhausted. What's wrong?" I told her everything. The gender reveal, the whispered threat, the papers waiting on my kitchen counter. Rachel listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from concern to something harder, something calculating. When I finished, she asked a question I wasn't expecting. "Does Tyler know about your inheritance?" My stomach dropped. 3 months ago, my grandfather died and left me a trust fund, $340,000. I'd told Tyler there was some money coming, but I'd been vague about details because something in my gut warned me to be careful. The money was locked in trust until the baby was born, a strange clause my grandfather had insisted on including. His lawyer had called it protection for the next generation. He knows something exists, but not how much or when. Rachel tilted her head, and I watched her mind work. "Vanessa works in estate planning, doesn't she?" Ice flooded my veins. Vanessa had access to public records, wills, financial documents. She could have found out about the inheritance. And the timing of the divorce, before the baby was born, before the trust fund was released, suddenly looked less like Tyler's crisis of commitment and more like a coordinated attack. "You think they know about the money? I think you need a lawyer. Today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today." I spent my lunch break in my car, hands shaking as I searched on my phone. I found Margaret Chen, a family law attorney with a reputation for destroying fraudulent cases. Her reviews were full of words like ruthless and brilliant, and saved my life. I called her office expecting to wait weeks for an appointment. Her receptionist put me through immediately. Margaret had a cancellation this afternoon at 4. "Can you make it?" I could make it. I would crawl there if I had to. The rest of my shift was a blur. I checked vitals on a 6-year-old recovering from appendicitis, administered medication to a newborn with jaundice, comforted a mother whose toddler had pneumonia. I went through the motions perfectly. I'd been trained to function during crisis, to keep my emotions separate from my work. But underneath the professional mask, my mind was racing. I thought about every time Vanessa had asked questions about my family, about my grandfather's health, about whether he'd made provisions for me. I'd thought she was being polite, making conversation at awkward family dinners. Now I saw the questions for what they were: reconnaissance. I thought about Tyler's sudden decision to quit his job 8 months ago. He'd claimed he was burnt out, that he needed time to find his passion. I'd supported him financially while he figured things out. Now I wondered if that was part of the plan, too. Establish unemployment before the divorce so he could claim inability to pay support. I thought about how Vanessa had been present at every major moment of my pregnancy. Every ultrasound appointment Tyler forgot, Vanessa somehow remembered to ask about. Every doctor's visit I attended alone, she'd text Tyler asking how it went. She was tracking my pregnancy like a project manager tracking a deadline. At 3:45, I changed out of my scrubs and drove to Margaret's office in downtown Boston. The building was sleek glass and steel, the kind of place that radiated expensive competence. Margaret's office was on the 14th floor, with windows overlooking the harbor. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and sharper suits. She read Tyler's divorce papers in silence. I watched her face change as she worked through the document. Not shock, but recognition, like a mechanic looking at a car and immediately knowing what amateur had tried to fix it. "This is pathetic," she said finally, setting the papers down. "They tried to get you to sign away child support, agree to unequal asset division, and waive your right to legal representation. Any judge would throw this in the trash. So what do? Margaret smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator spotting wounded prey. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You let them file their petition. Let them schedule their hearing. Let them think they're in control. Meanwhile, I prepare something different. Different how? How much documentation do you have? Bank statements, text messages, emails, anything showing the financial dynamics of your marriage. Everything. I kept records of every bill I paid, every expense. Tyler always said I was obsessive about it. Tyler, Margaret said, opening her laptop, is an idiot, and idiots leave trails. I spent the next hour walking Margaret through 2 years of marriage, the credit card statements showing I paid for everything, while Tyler's account showed gym memberships and bar tabs. The Venmo history of me sending him money for gas and groceries that somehow never appeared in our shared expenses. The text messages where I begged him to help with bills, and he responded with excuses about waiting for the right opportunity. Margaret took notes with frightening efficiency. What about communication between Tyler and Vanessa? I don't have access to that. Do you have access to your phone records? We can subpoena the content later, but call frequency and timing can be revealing. I pulled up our phone account online. The records showed what I'd been too trusting to notice before. Tyler and Vanessa talked every single day, often multiple times. Long conversations late at night, when he said he was going for walks to clear his head. Brief calls right before major pregnancy milestones, like they were coordinating something. Margaret's smile widened. Claire, I think we're going to have fun. With this case, that night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Tyler snore in the guest room, my mind replaying every conversation I'd had with Margaret. She'd sent me home with homework, gather every document, every text message, every shred of evidence that showed the real financial picture of our marriage. I'd thought I was being thorough before, but Margaret had opened my eyes to what actual evidence looked like. At 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep, got out of bed carefully, my pregnant belly making every movement awkward, and went to Tyler's home office. He'd been careless lately, leaving his laptop open, his phone unlocked. He thought I was too trusting to snoop. He thought I was too pregnant and emotional to think clearly. He was wrong on both counts. His laptop was sitting on the desk, screen dark but not closed. I touched the trackpad, and it woke up immediately. No password, because Tyler was fundamentally lazy about security. His email was open in one tab. His text messages synced from his phone in another. I sat down in his chair and started reading. The first email I found was from Vanessa, dated 3 weeks ago. Subject line, timeline. My hands started shaking before I even opened it. Tyler, talked to David at the firm. He confirmed the trust releases on birth. You need to file before that happens, or it becomes marital property. I'm drafting the petition this weekend. Don't tell Claire anything until we're ready. She'll panic and lawyer up if she has time to think. Do it somewhere public so she can't make a scene. I'm thinking the gender reveal. Perfect timing, lots of witnesses. She'll be too embarrassed to fight back in the moment. I read it 3 times. Each time the words got clearer and the rage got colder. This wasn't Tyler's crisis of commitment. This was Vanessa's legal strategy, and Tyler was just her puppet. I scrolled through more emails. There were dozens. Vanessa laying out the plan step by step. Tyler quits his job to establish unemployment. They wait until I'm too pregnant to fight effectively. They ambush me at a public event to maximize my emotional distress and minimize my ability to respond. They push for immediate signing before I can consult an attorney. Then Tyler files, gets the divorce finalized before the trust releases, and walks away clean while I'm stuck raising our daughter alone and broke. Except they didn't know I had the trust. They thought the money would come to me. Directly, that it would be mine alone if we were divorced. They didn't understand the legal nuances of trust distribution during marriage. They'd gotten greedy and sloppy. I found text messages next. Weeks of them. Tyler and Vanessa discussing me like I was a problem to solve rather than a person. Tyler complaining about my pregnancy symptoms, about how I was always tired and no fun anymore. Vanessa responding with advice on how to document everything to build his case for emotional distress. One message made me want to vomit. She's so focused on the baby she doesn't notice anything else. We could rob her blind and she'd just smile and ask if we want dinner. Tyler's response, LOL. She made pot roast last night. I didn't even say thank you. They were laughing at me. While I was carrying Tyler's child, working 60-hour weeks to support us both, trying to prepare for our daughter's arrival. They were laughing at how stupid and blind I was. But then I found something else, something that changed everything. Buried in an email thread from 2 months ago, Vanessa had sent Tyler a screenshot of estate records, my grandfather's trust documents, the full details, $340,000, held in trust, releasing upon the birth of my first child. And below the screenshot, Vanessa had written, "This is what we're playing for. This is your daughter's college fund, your retirement, your freedom. Don't screw this up. My daughter's college fund." They weren't just trying to divorce me and avoid child support. They were trying to steal my daughter's future. I took photos of everything with my phone. Every email, every text message, every document. My hands were steady now. The tears had dried. I felt something cold and clear settling into my chest, pushing out the hurt and shock, and replacing it with something sharper, purpose. I forwarded the most damning emails to my personal account. I backed up the text messages to the cloud. I documented everything with timestamps and context. Margaret had told me to gather evidence. I was gathering a nuclear bomb. At 4 a.m, I heard Tyler get up to use the bathroom. I closed his laptop carefully, exactly how I'd found it, and slipped out of his office. By the time he stumbled past in the dark, I was back in our bedroom, lying in bed, eyes closed, breathing steady, but I wasn't sleeping. I was planning. Margaret had told me to let them file first, to let them think they were in control. Now I understood why. Let them commit to their lies under oath. Let them present their fabricated case to a judge. Let them dig the hole deeper and deeper, until there was no way to climb out. They wanted to play games with my daughter's future? Fine. I'd show them what happened when you underestimated a mother protecting her child. I touched my belly and felt Sophie kick, strong and insistent. She was fighter already. She got that from me. Tyler and Vanessa were about to learn exactly what kind of woman they'd been plotting against. I smiled in the dark. They thought they were so clever. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I met Margaret at her office before my shift started. I handed her my phone with screenshots of everything I'd found. She scrolled through them in silence, her expression shifting from professional interest to something darker, something personal. "They put it in writing," she said finally, looking up at me. "They actually put their conspiracy in writing. Claire, this is prosecutorial-level stupidity. Can we use it? Can we use it? We can demolish them with it." She set my phone down carefully. "But there's something we need to discuss first. This level of evidence opens doors we might not want to walk through." I didn't understand at first. Then Margaret explained. "With this kind of documented fraud, we could pursue criminal charges, coercion, attempted theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. Vanessa could lose her law license permanently. Tyler could face actual jail time, not just financial penalties." "Do you want that?" Margaret asked. "Because once we go down that road, there's no walking it back. This stops being a divorce and becomes a criminal case." I thought about Sophie, about raising her with a father in prison, about the questions she'd ask someday. I thought about Tyler's mother, who'd been nothing but kind to me, who didn't deserve to watch her son become a felon. I thought about revenge versus justice, about punishment versus protection. "I want them stopped," I said finally. "I want Sophie protected. I want to make sure they can never do this to anyone else. But I don't want to destroy Tyler's whole family in the process." Margaret nodded like she'd expected that answer. "Then, we use the criminal evidence as leverage. We show them we have enough to prosecute, and we offer them a deal. They give you everything you want in the divorce. Vanessa faces professional consequences, but not criminal ones. And Tyler becomes the most reliable child support payer in Massachusetts history." It sounded perfect. Too perfect. What's the catch? The catch is that we have to be patient. We have to let them file their petition. Let them commit to their story under oath. Let them think they're winning right up until the moment we show our hand. Can you do that? Can you live with Tyler for another few weeks pretending you don't know anything? I thought about the act I'd been performing my whole marriage, pretending Tyler's criticism was helpful, pretending Vanessa's coldness was just her personality, pretending I didn't notice how invisible I'd become in my own life. I'd been pretending for 2 years. I could pretend for a few more weeks. I can do it. But living with Tyler, knowing what I knew, was harder than I'd anticipated. Every morning, he'd come into the kitchen and kiss my forehead like he was still playing husband. Every evening he'd ask about my day at the hospital like he cared, and I'd smile and answer and set his dinner in front of him while my mind calculated exactly how many days until the hearing, how many more performances I had to give. The worst part was watching him with other people. At my next prenatal appointment, Tyler came along. Vanessa had probably told him to maintain appearances. He held my hand in the waiting room. He asked the doctor questions about the baby's development. He even teared up when we heard Sophie's heartbeat on the monitor. Doctor smiled at us. "You two are going to be wonderful parents." Tyler squeezed my hand. "I can't wait," he said, and he sounded so sincere that for half a second I almost believed him. Almost forgot that 2 nights ago I'd read his text to Vanessa, sitting through another appointment. Kill me now. I wanted to scream at him, to tell the doctor what kind of father he was planning to be, the absent kind, the kind who signs away rights to avoid responsibility. But I just smiled and thanked her, and let Tyler help me off the examination table even though I didn't need help, even though his hand on my back made my skin crawl. At home, I started noticing things I'd been too trusting to see before. How Tyler always stepped away to take Vanessa's calls, like I might overhear something. How he'd been cleaning out his closet gradually, taking boxes to his car when he thought I wasn't looking. How he'd transferred money from our joint savings account into a personal account he thought I didn't know about. $3,000 here, $2,000 there, always just under the amount that would trigger a notification. I documented everything, photographed the boxes in his trunk, screenshot every transaction, kept a journal of every suspicious phone call, every convenient errand that lasted 3 hours, every time he said he was at the gym but came home without his workout bag. Sarah, my best friend, noticed something was wrong. She came over one evening with Thai food and found me sitting in Sophie's nursery, staring at the wall. "Claire, what's going on? You've been weird for weeks." I wanted to tell her. Sarah had been my friend since nursing school, had been my maid of honor, had thrown me a baby shower with a custom cake shaped like a stork. But Margaret's voice was in my head. The fewer people who know, the better. Tyler and Vanessa couldn't find out that I knew about their plan. "Just pregnancy stuff," I lied. "I'm tired all the time. Emotional." Sarah sat down next. To me, her hand on my shoulder. "Is Tyler helping? Because I swear if he's being useless, he's fine. We're fine." The lies tasted like ash in my mouth, but I swallowed them down because I had to. Because Sophie needed me to be smart, not emotional. She needed me to win, not just fight. That night, Tyler served me the divorce papers officially. A process server came to the house at 8 p.m., handed me the envelope, and left. Tyler watched from the living room, phone in hand, probably texting. Vanessa, that phase 2 was complete. I opened the envelope and read the petition. It was everything the original draft had been, plus new additions. Tyler was now claiming I was emotionally unstable due to pregnancy hormones, that I had been verbally abusive, that he feared for his safety. I read every word with my lawyer face on, the one I'd learned from watching Margaret. Then I looked up at Tyler and smiled. "I'll see you in court." Margaret filed my response to Tyler's petition 3 days before the deadline. She didn't send me a copy first. Said it was better if my reaction was genuine when Tyler saw it. All she told me was, "Trust me, you're going to love this." Tyler got served at Vanessa's house. I know because he called me immediately, his voice shaking with rage. "What the hell is this, Claire? You're accusing me of financial abuse, of conspiracy." I was folding laundry in our bedroom, Sophie's tiny onesies soft in my hands. "I'm just responding to your petition, Tyler. You said I was emotionally unstable and abusive. I figured I should tell my side too." "Your side is insane. You're claiming I've been unemployed on purpose? That Vanessa and I planned this? Didn't you?" Silence, long and heavy. Then, "You can't prove any of that." "Can't I?" More silence. I could hear Vanessa in the background, her voice sharp and urgent, though I couldn't make out words. Tyler was realizing, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't the pushover he'd married, that I'd evolved into something different, something dangerous. "We should settle this privately," he said finally. "No need to drag it through court. I'll agree to reasonable support. See you at the hearing, Tyler." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from power, from the intoxicating realization that I'd spent 2 years thinking I was weak, when actually I'd just been waiting for a reason to be strong. At work, the story was spreading. Not the real story. I'd been careful about what I shared. but the basic outline. My husband had served me divorce papers at our gender reveal party. The nurses' station had turned into a strategy center. Rachel brought me articles about fathers' rights cases. Another nurse, Jennifer, whose ex-husband had pulled similar stunts, gave me the name of a financial investigator. Even Dr. Morrison, the attending physician I usually found intimidating, stopped me in the hallway to say, "Take him for everything. Men like that don't deserve mercy." But it was my patient that week who changed something fundamental in me. A 7-year-old girl named Emma, in the hospital for a broken arm. Her father had caused the injury during a custody exchange, grabbed her roughly when her mother was late, yanked her into his car, snapped her radius clean through. Emma's mother sat by her bed looking exactly how I felt, exhausted, guilty, furious at herself for not protecting her daughter sooner. She kept saying, "I should have known. I should have seen what he was." I changed Emma's IV while her mother cried quietly. Emma was asleep, her small face peaceful despite the pink cast on her arm. She looked like Sophie would look in 7 years. Innocent, trusting, believing her parents would keep her safe. "You couldn't have known," I told Emma's mother. "Men like that are good at hiding what they are." But there were signs, little things. The way he talked about her, like she was an inconvenience. The way he forgot her birthday, but remembered to text me about child support. I ignored it all because I wanted to believe he loved her. I sat down next to her, my hand on my own belly. "You're protecting her now. That's what matters." She looked at me, really looked at me, and saw something in my face. "You're going through something too." I shouldn't have told her. But sitting there in that hospital room, watching a little girl sleep off pain her father had caused, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I told her about Tyler, about the gender reveal, about the divorce papers designed to leave Sophie without support. I didn't mention the trust fund or the evidence I'd gathered. That was need-to-know information. But I told her enough. "Listen to me," Emma's mother said, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "Don't do what I did. Don't give him chances he doesn't deserve. Don't believe him when he says he'll change. Protect your daughter now, before she's old enough to remember him disappointing her." I thought about that conversation for days, about Emma's broken arm and her mother's regrets, about all the ways Tyler could hurt Sophie over the years if I let him stay in her life half-heartedly, showing up when convenient and disappearing when fatherhood got difficult. Margaret called me a week before the hearing. "We have a problem." My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Tyler's lawyer, the one Vanessa found, just withdrew from the case. Conflict of interest. Vanessa apparently didn't disclose that she'd consulted with him previously about an unrelated matter, which means he can't represent Tyler now. Is that bad for us? It's perfect for us. Tyler has to find a new lawyer a week before the hearing. Any competent attorney will look at this case and see it's a disaster. They'll either refuse to take it or charge him a fortune because they know it's unwinnable. Either way, Tyler's scrambling. I felt something cold and satisfied settle in my chest. Good. There's more. Vanessa's firm caught wind of the ethics complaint I filed. They've put her on administrative leave pending investigation. She's not allowed to practice law or advise anyone on legal matters until it's resolved. So Tyler's on his own? Tyler's on his own, Margaret confirmed. No lawyer, no Vanessa, no plan. Just him walking into court with documents that accuse you of being crazy and abusive, while we have evidence of his conspiracy in black and white. I should have felt sorry for him. Some part of, me, the part that had loved him once, wanted to feel sorry for him. But mostly I felt nothing. Just cold determination and absolute certainty that I was doing the right thing. That weekend my parents came to visit. My mother wanted to see the nursery, to help me organize Sophie's clothes by size, to pretend everything was normal, and her daughter wasn't about to become a single mother. We were folding receiving blankets when she said, "Your father and I want you to know we support you. Whatever. You decide about Tyler." "What do you mean, whatever I decide?" She smoothed a blanket carefully before answering. "If you want to forgive him, if you want to try counseling. We know marriage is hard. We know pregnancy changes things." I stared at her. "Mom, he served me divorce papers at the gender reveal, in front of everyone. He told me he never wanted Sophie. People say things they don't mean when they're scared. Your father almost left when I was pregnant with you. He was terrified of being a parent, but he stayed, and look how wonderful everything turned out. I left my parents' house shaking with rage I couldn't show. My mother meant well. She always meant well. But her generation's advice was poison. Stay, forgive, give him another chance. As if Tyler deserving another chance mattered more than Sophie deserving a father who actually wanted her. Driving home, I called Margaret from the car. My family thinks I should reconcile with him. Your family didn't read the emails, where he and his sister planned to steal your inheritance. I know, but what if they're right that I'm being too harsh? What if Tyler really is just scared and… Claire, Margaret's voice cut through my spiral. Stop. Listen to me. You're 8 months pregnant, exhausted, and second-guessing yourself because that's what women are taught to do. But you've seen the evidence. You know what he is. Don't let anyone convince you to ignore what you know is true. She was right. I knew she was right. But doubt is insidious, especially when it comes from people you love. I spent that night lying awake, my mind cycling through every moment of my marriage, trying to find the point where Tyler stopped being the man I thought he was and became the man he actually is. Or maybe he'd always been this person, and I'd just been too trusting to see it. 4 days before the hearing, Tyler moved out. He didn't tell me he was leaving. I came home from a 12-hour shift to find half the living room. Furniture gone, his clothes cleared out of our closet, his toiletries vanished from the bathroom. He'd taken the good coffee maker, the expensive knives I'd bought for his birthday, even the framed photo of us from our wedding that had been on the mantel. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Staying with a friend until this is resolved. Don't contact me except through lawyers. I stood in our half-empty living room, 8 months pregnant and alone, and felt something crack open inside me. Not sadness. I was beyond sadness. It was rage so pure and cold it felt like clarity. He'd abandoned me completely now. Hadn't even had the courage to tell me to my face. Just packed his things like a thief and disappeared. I took photos of everything he'd taken, documented the empty spaces, sent it all to Margaret with a text. He cleared out the house. Her response came immediately. Perfect. Shows consciousness of guilt. Judge will love it. That night, I assembled Sophie's crib alone. It took me 3 hours and my back ached so badly I could barely stand by the end, but I got every bolt tightened, every side panel secured. I stood back and looked at the finished crib with its soft pink sheets and mobile of stars hanging above, and I made a promise to my daughter. She would never feel abandoned the way I felt in that moment. She would never question whether she was wanted. I would love her enough for 2 parents. 2 days before the hearing, Vanessa called me. I almost didn't answer. Margaret had told me not to engage, but curiosity won. I needed to hear what she'd say now that her plan was falling apart. Claire, we need to talk. Her voice was tight, controlled, the voice of someone used to being in charge, trying to maintain authority. I don't think we do. Tyler is falling apart. He's not sleeping. He's not eating. This is destroying him. Good. Silence. I'd surprised her. Sweet, accommodating Claire had apparently found her spine. I know you're angry, Vanessa continued. I understand. But think about what you're doing. You're going to drag this through court, air all your private business in front of a judge, make everything ugly in public. Is that really what you want? What I want is for your brother to take responsibility for his daughter. What I want is justice for 2 years of financial abuse. What I want is for you to face consequences for using your position to access confidential information about my family's estate. Another pause. Longer this time. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice had changed. Less controlled. More desperate. How did you know about the emails? About the plan? About everything? I smiled even though she couldn't see me. Because, unlike Tyler, I'm not lazy. Unlike you, I'm thorough. I have documentation of everything, Vanessa. Every email. Every text message, every time you two discussed stealing from my daughter. That's not what we were doing. Then what were you doing? Explain it to me. Explain. How serving me divorce papers before my inheritance released was about anything other than making sure I couldn't access money that belongs to Sophie's future. Vanessa's breath came sharp through the phone. Tyler deserves half of that money. He's your husband. Tyler deserves nothing. He quit his job deliberately. He stopped contributing financially. He planned to abandon his daughter, and you helped him do it because you never thought I was good enough for him in the first place. That's not… Yes, it is. You've hated me since the day we met. I was never educated enough, never polished enough, never from the right family. You wanted Tyler to marry one of those women from his law school, someone from your social circle, but he married a pediatric nurse from a working-class family instead, and you couldn't stand it. I'd finally said it out loud, the truth I'd been swallowing for years. the invisible line between us that she'd drawn and reinforced at every family gathering, every holiday, every interaction where she made me feel small. Claire, please. This is going to ruin Tyler's life. He'll never recover from this financially. Is that really what you want for the father of your child? He's not going to be a father to my child. He made that clear. He's just going to be a man who pays child support. And honestly, that's more than he deserves. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But underneath the adrenaline was steel. I stood up to Vanessa, something I'd never done before, and it felt incredible. Margaret called an hour later. Vanessa just contacted me about settling. What kind of settlement? Everything we asked for plus more. Full child support based on his earning potential. All your separate property protected. Tyler covers your legal fees. Vanessa submits to the ethics investigation without fighting it. It was exactly what we wanted. Complete victory without the public spectacle of a trial. I should have said yes immediately, but something in me resisted. What about the criminal charges? We'd agree not to pursue them. Clean slate for Tyler. Professional consequences only for Vanessa. I need to think about it. I didn't sleep the night before the hearing. I lay in bed watching the clock tick from 11 to midnight to 1 to 3, my mind spinning through every possible outcome. Margaret had presented their settlement offer like it was a gift. Everything I wanted without the stress of, court. But something about accepting felt like letting them off easy, like allowing them to avoid the public reckoning they deserved. At 4 a.m, I got up and showered, put on the navy maternity dress I'd bought specifically for court. Professional, but visibly pregnant. A reminder to everyone in that room exactly what Tyler was abandoning. I did my makeup carefully, covering the dark circles under my eyes, adding color to cheeks that had gone pale from stress and sleepless nights. I wanted to look strong, capable, like a woman who had her life together even as it fell apart. Margaret had told me the hearing would be short if we accepted the settlement. The judge would review the agreement, confirm I understood the terms, and sign off. 30 minutes maximum. But if I rejected it and insisted on presenting our evidence, we'd be there for hours. Tyler would have to testify. Vanessa might be called as a witness. Every ugly detail would become part of public record. I drove to the courthouse at 7, even though the hearing wasn't until 9. I needed time to sit with my decision, to feel the weight of it before committing. The Suffolk County Courthouse was massive granite and glass, imposing in that way government buildings are designed to be. I climbed the steps slowly, my hand on the railing, Sophie heavy in my belly. Inside, the halls were already filling with people, lawyers in expensive suits, defendants in their best clothes, families huddled together, whispering. I found the family court waiting area and sat down in an uncomfortable plastic chair, my purse in my lap, my heart beating too fast. Margaret arrived at 8:15, looking sharp in a charcoal suit, her briefcase heavy with documentation we might not even need. She sat next to me and spoke quietly. Have you decided? Not yet. Claire, I need to know before we walk into that room. The judge will ask if you want to proceed or settle. You have to have an answer. I watched people moving through the hallway. A young couple holding hands, both of them looking terrified. An older woman crying while her lawyer patted her shoulder. A man pacing by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, voice rising in anger. So many broken families, so many endings happening in these sterile hallways. What would you do? I asked Margaret. If this was your case, your life. She was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I'd take them to trial, not for the outcome. The settlement gives you everything you'd get from a judge and more, but for the principle, for the satisfaction of watching them squirm under oath, for making sure they understand the full weight of what they tried to do. But I'm a lawyer. I think about justice in terms of precedent and punishment. You're a mother. You have to think about what's best for Sophie, and dragging her father through public trial, making him answer questions about planning to abandon her, that becomes part of her story forever. Court. Transcripts are public record. Someday she might read them. That stopped me cold. I hadn't thought about Sophie reading the transcripts, about her being 13 or 16 or 21, and searching her own name online and finding every humiliating detail of her father's betrayal documented in legal filings. At 8:45, Tyler arrived. I watched him walk down the hallway with a lawyer I didn't recognize, someone he'd clearly hired in desperation at the last minute. Tyler looked terrible. He'd lost weight. His suit hung loose on his frame, and there were dark circles under his eyes that matched mine. For half a second, I felt something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the emails, the laughter, the way he and Vanessa had plotted to steal from our daughter. The pity evaporated. Tyler saw me and stopped walking. Our eyes met across 30 feet of courthouse hallway. I saw fear in his face. Real fear. He knew what I had. He knew what I could do to him. And he was terrified. Good. He should be terrified. Vanessa wasn't with him. She couldn't be. The ethics investigation prohibited her from participating in legal matters. But I could feel her presence anyway, hovering over this whole situation like a ghost. She'd orchestrated this. She'd pushed Tyler to do something he was probably too weak to do on his own. And now, she was home, suspended from her job, waiting to find out if her career would survive her greed. At 8:55, the bailiff called. Our case. Mercer versus Mercer. Family court. Judge Harrison presiding. Margaret stood and offered me her hand. I took it and let her pull me to my feet. Sophie kicked hard against my ribs, as if she knew this was an important moment, as if she was reminding me she was here, depending on me to make the right choice. We walked into the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, high ceilings, the state seal mounted behind the judge's bench. Tyler and his lawyer sat at one table. Margaret guided me to the other. The distance between us was maybe 15 feet. It felt like miles. Judge Harrison entered and everyone stood. She was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She sat down, reviewed the file in front of her, and looked up at both of us. I've reviewed the petition and response in this matter. I understand there's been discussion of settlement. Margaret stood. Yes, Your Honor. We've received an offer from petitioners. Counsel, and has your client decided whether to accept? Every eye in the room turned to me. Tyler's lawyer, the bailiff, the court reporter with her fingers poised over the stenography machine. Margaret, her face carefully neutral. Tyler, his hands gripping the edge of the table. This was the moment. Accept the settlement and walk away clean, or reject it and make them pay publicly for what they'd tried to do. I stood up, my hand on my belly, Sophie moving beneath my palm. No, Your Honor, I said, my voice steady and clear. I reject the settlement. I want to proceed. The courtroom went silent. Tyler's face drained of color. His lawyer actually looked at him with something like alarm. Clearly, this was not what they'd prepared for. Margaret sat back down slowly, and I caught the smallest hint of a smile on her face. Judge Harrison raised an eyebrow. Ms. Mercer, I understand your attorney recommended this settlement as favorable. Are you certain you want to proceed to hearing? I'm certain, Your Honor. There are things that need to be said in this courtroom. Things that need to become part of the official record. Very well. The judge settled back in her chair. Mr. Mercer, you're petitioning for dissolution of marriage. On what grounds? Tyler's lawyer stood, fumbling with papers. Irreconcilable differences, Your Honor. My client and his wife have grown apart during the pregnancy. The stress has created an untenable living situation. And you're requesting no child. Support obligation? My client is currently unemployed and unable to... Your Honor, Margaret interrupted, standing smoothly. May I present evidence regarding the petitioner's employment status? Judge Harrison nodded. Margaret approached the bench with a folder I knew contained every damning email, every text message, every piece of evidence we'd gathered. She handed copies to the judge and Tyler's lawyer. I watched Tyler's face as his own lawyer read the emails, watched the color drain. Further, watched his hands start to shake. His lawyer looked up at him with an expression that clearly said, You didn't tell me about this. Your Honor, Margaret began, these communications show that Mr. Mercer voluntarily terminated his employment 8 months ago as part of a coordinated plan with his sister, Vanessa Mercer, to avoid financial obligations to both his wife and their unborn child. The goal was to establish artificial unemployment before filing for divorce. She walked the us. Judge through it methodically. The emails where Vanessa laid out the timeline. The texts where Tyler complained about having to maintain appearances. The bank records showing him transferring money into hidden accounts. The estate documents Vanessa had accessed showing my grandfather's trust fund, with notes about how to ensure Tyler could claim it was marital property. Judge Harrison's expression grew harder with each page she reviewed. Mr. Mercer, did you and your sister plan this divorce? Specifically to access your wife's inheritance? Tyler's lawyer started to answer, but the judge cut him off. I asked your client, counselor. Tyler stood, his legs visibly shaking. Your Honor, those emails are taken out of context. Vanessa was just helping me understand my options. Your options? The judge's voice could have cut glass. Your options included serving divorce papers to your pregnant wife at a public event, renouncing your parental rights to avoid financial responsibility, attempting to access a trust fund established for your child's benefit. We weren't. Tyler looked at his lawyer desperately. Margaret wasn't finished. Your Honor, there's more. Mr. Mercer claimed in his petition that my client is emotionally unstable and verbally abusive, but his own communications tell a different story. She presented printouts of texts between Tyler and Vanessa, messages where Tyler described me as pathetically devoted and too stupid to notice anything. Jokes about how I worked 60-hour weeks while he played video games. Plans for how to document false claims of abuse to strengthen his case. He made pot roast, and I didn't even say thank you. Margaret read aloud from one text. She's so focused on the baby she doesn't notice I'm robbing her blind. She looked up at Tyler. Does that sound like a man afraid of his abusive wife? Tyler had no answer. He just stood there, exposed, with nowhere to hide. Mr. Mercer, Judge Harrison said coldly, your petition claims you're unemployed and unable to support a child. What was your salary before you voluntarily quit? $87,000 annually, Tyler mumbled. And Ms. Mercer's salary as a pediatric nurse? $62,000. So you, the higher earner, quit your job deliberately to avoid supporting your child, while your wife continued working through her pregnancy to support both of you. Tyler nodded miserably. Your Honor, Margaret continued, we're requesting full child support. Based on Mr. Mercer's earning potential, not his manufactured unemployment. We're also requesting that the court recognize my client's inheritance as separate property, protected from division, and we're requesting full reimbursement for 2 years of financial support Ms. Mercer provided to Mr. Mercer, approximately $43,000 in documented expenses. Tyler's lawyer tried to object. Your Honor, $43,000 is excessive. I've reviewed the bank statements, Counselor. If anything, it's conservative. Judge Harrison turned back to Tyler. Mr. Mercer, you have 2 options. You can accept the terms Ms. Chen is proposing, or we can continue this hearing, and I can add sanctions for fraud, perjury, and wasting this court's time. Which do you prefer? Tyler looked like he might vomit. I accept the terms. Excellent. Child support will be calculated at $87,000 annual income. That's approximately $1,200 monthly. Ms. Mercer retains full legal and physical custody. You'll have supervised visitation rights if and when you choose to exercise them. You'll reimburse Ms. Mercer the $43,000 in marital support she provided, payable over 5 years. You'll cover all her legal fees, and Ms. Mercer's inheritance is confirmed as separate property, not subject to division. The judge looked at me. Ms. Mercer, does this resolution satisfy you? It should have felt triumphant. Tyler was ordered to pay. Everything I'd asked for and more. He'd been publicly humiliated, his conspiracy exposed in open court. I'd won completely. But looking at him standing there, broken and pathetic, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, but sadness. Sadness that this was who he'd always been, and I'd just been too trusting to see it. Sadness that Sophie would grow up reading these transcripts someday and know her father had tried to erase her before she was born. Yes, Your Honor. It satisfies me. Judge Harrison signed the order. This divorce is granted. Mr. Mercer, I suggest you find employment quickly. This court takes child support obligations very seriously. If you fall behind, you'll face contempt charges. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. You're dismissed. We filed out of the courtroom. Tyler and his lawyer disappeared down one hallway. Margaret and I walked the other direction, toward the exit, toward sunlight and freedom. In the courthouse parking lot, Margaret turned to me. How do you feel? Tired, I said honestly. Relieved. Ready for this to be over. It is over. He can't touch you now. Can't touch Sophie. You're free. Free. The word felt strange. I'd been tied to Tyler for 2 years. First by love, then by pregnancy, then by legal battles. Now there was nothing connecting us except a monthly child support payment and a daughter he'd never wanted. I got in my car and drove home to our half-empty house, to Sophie's nursery with the crib I'd assembled alone, to the life I was building without him. And for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. Sophie was born 3 weeks later on a Tuesday morning in October. 12 hours of labor, no complications. 7 pounds and 4 ounces of perfect, furious baby girl who came into the world screaming like she had opinions about everything already. My mother was there, holding my hand. Sarah was there, taking photos I'd treasure forever. Tyler wasn't there, didn't even call. The nurse placed Sophie on my chest, and she stopped crying immediately, her tiny hand gripping my finger with surprising strength. I looked down at her scrunched-up face and dark eyes that would eventually turn hazel like mine, and I felt something shift fundamentally in my universe. This was what mattered. Not Tyler's betrayal, not Vanessa's schemes, not the money or the court battles or any of it. Just this small person depending on me completely, trusting me to protect her and love her and give her everything she deserved. "Hi, baby girl," I whispered. "I'm your mom. I've been waiting to meet you." She blinked up at me like she understood, like she knew I'd fought for her before she was even born, like she trusted me to keep fighting for the rest of her life. The trust fund released 2 days after her birth, $340,000, deposited into an account with both our names, protected and untouchable by anyone else. My grandfather had known what he was doing with that birth clause. He'd protected Sophie's future from people who might try to claim it didn't belong to her. Tyler's first child support payment arrived exactly on time, $1,200, deposited automatically on the 1st of November. Every month after that, like clockwork. He never missed a payment, never tried to contest the amount. I think the court hearing had terrified him into compliance. Or maybe Margaret's warning about contempt charges had sunk in. Either way, the money came, regular and reliable, even if Tyler himself never did. He exercised his visitation rights exactly 3 times in Sophie's first year. 3 awkward supervised visits at a family center where he held her like she might explode, made uncomfortable small talk with the supervisor, and left after exactly the court-mandated hour. After that 3rd visit, he stopped scheduling them, just sent the money and stayed away, which honestly was the best thing he could have done for her. Vanessa lost her law license for 18 months. The ethics board found she'd violated confidentiality rules by accessing my grandfather's estate documents and using privileged information to advise her brother in a legal matter. She also had to complete additional ethics training and pay a substantial fine. Last I heard, she'd left Boston entirely, moved to Denver, started over at a smaller firm where nobody knew her history. Tyler got a new job 4 months after the divorce finalized, some mid-level position at a tech company making $72,000 a year, less than before but enough to live on after child support. He moved to an apartment in Somerville, dated someone briefly according to mutual friends, then stopped appearing on social media altogether. He'd become a ghost in his own life, and I felt nothing about it. Not vindication, not pity, nothing. He was just the man who sent money for Sophie every month. Nothing more. My life changed in ways I couldn't have predicted. I went back to work when Sophie was 3 months old, grateful for my mother's help with childcare. The hospital offered me a promotion, lead pediatric nurse, better hours, better pay. I bought a small house in Brookline with money from the trust fund, something with a yard and good schools nearby, a place where Sophie could grow up safe and loved. Sarah moved in with us for the first year, her own relationship having ended around the same time as mine. We became a different kind of family, 2 single women raising a baby, together, taking turns with night feedings, laughing through the exhaustion, building something that looked nothing like what I'd planned, but felt more solid than anything Tyler had ever given me. On Sophie's first birthday, we threw a party in our backyard. 20 people came. My parents, Sarah's family, nurses from the hospital, neighborhood friends we'd made. Sophie wore a pink dress and a tiny crown, smashed her face into chocolate cake, laughed that belly laugh that babies have when everything is hilarious and new. I took a photo of her covered in frosting, grinning at the camera, and I thought, this is what Tyler walked away from. This joy, this light, this perfect human being, his loss, my gain. I look at Sophie now, at 2 years old, running through our house with boundless energy, singing nonsense songs, demanding to read the same book 17 times in a row. She has my hazel eyes and stubborn chin. She has Tyler's dark hair but none of his weakness. She doesn't ask. About her father, she's too young to understand what's missing. Someday she'll ask, and I'll tell her the truth in age-appropriate ways. I'll tell her that her father made choices that had nothing to do with her worth, that she's loved beyond measure, that family is built through action and presence, not biology. I learned things through this that I wish I hadn't needed to learn. I learned that trusting people completely is dangerous, that keeping some part of yourself separate and protected isn't cynicism but survival. I I learned that the people who seem most put together are sometimes the ones plotting your destruction. I learned that fighting for yourself and your child isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's righteous. It's the most important thing you'll ever do. But I also learned that you're stronger than you think, that when pushed far enough, you'll find resources inside yourself you didn't know existed, that being underestimated is sometimes an advantage because no one sees you coming until it's too late. I'm not the woman I was at that gender reveal party, holding that pink envelope with trembling hands while my marriage collapsed around me. That woman was too trusting, too accommodating, too willing to diminish herself to keep peace. I'm someone different now, someone harder in some ways, softer in others, someone who knows her worth and won't accept less than she deserves. Sophie will grow up watching me be this person. She'll learn from my example that you don't have to accept betrayal gracefully, that fighting back isn't unladylike, that protecting yourself and your children is holy work. She'll learn that love isn't submission, that family isn't obligation, that you can build a beautiful life from the wreckage of what you thought you wanted. Tyler served me divorce papers at our gender reveal. He thought he was destroying me. Instead, he freed me to become who I was always meant to be, a mother who fights, a woman who wins, a person who knows that being feared and alone beats being loved and invisible every single time. If you're going through something similar, if someone is trying to break you down and take what's yours, remember this: document everything, trust your instincts, and never underestimate what you're capable of when protecting someone you love. You're stronger than they think, you're smarter than they know, and when you finally stand up and fight back, they'll never see you coming. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, please subscribe for more stories about women who refuse to stay down. Next time, I'll tell you about the woman whose husband tried to steal her business and how she bought his instead. You won't want to miss it. My name is Claire, and this is my reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so beautiful they can only watch from the outside, knowing they gave up something irreplaceable for nothing at all.